Hello. Hey, folks. How's everybody going today? Oh, I need some water. Lovely Tuesday. Hope you're all having a great start to your week so far. Today, we're talking about how hard to push in the gym and how hard to push while staying safe from injury. It's not super duper. Well, it is pretty straightforward. Anyways, we're going to go through it and I'm going to impart some knowledge for you guys. Um, that's the topic. If you're hopping on, I know I just sent the message out to everybody that we're firing up. So sure everybody's going to start to filter in here. But yeah, if you're joining the live, I'm just going to comment this here for you. If you're joining the live, drop your win. Oh, there we go. Oh, right. I forgot this is Casey's YouTube account, so comments come through as her. So yeah, if you're joining the live, drop your wins, celebrate some wins to start the day off or start the call off. My win today, man, I had a win. I can't remember what it is today. My win. Son of a gun, I know I got to come up with another one. Well, one win would be it's kind of like a bittersweet win, but I don't know if you can see on the top of my hand there. I got a bump. Well, I don't have it on the other hand, and it's new for me. It's not a ganglion cyst, which is well, I probably would have been the best scenario because then I could have just smacked it with a textbook and it would have been done with. But I thought for a little bit there that it might have been a dislocated carpal bone in my hand because it's fairly tender, but found out that it's actually just a bit of an overgrowth of bone, and it's only painful because it's kind of flared up right now. So my win is that it's not anything super duper serious, and it's something that if I just give it some rest and leave it alone, it should settle out a little bit. Got a win from Lewis. Logged every meal today in the app, and water headed to the gym now. I love it, dude. That's what's up. Yeah, keep logging that food. Keep getting that water in there, and love hearing that you're getting to the gym, man. All right, so let's hop into the topic here. I'll start chatting to you guys about effort. So we actually make it quite simple. The effort level that you should have, and we do this purposely, not just for your results, but also a big part of our programming is to make sure that you stay safe. And Casey is our rehab expert, and that's absolutely her area of expertise from her former profession. So when you're looking at effort, we're simply just going right back to those RIRs. The appropriate level of effort is literally following the RIR, which typically is at most going to be a 1 RIR, and occasionally you're going to have a 0 RIR, which is going to failure. So what that means in a nutshell, just to remind you, is that you're going 1 RIR is it's that rep where you like barely got the wet rep up, but you got it up. It just was a struggle, and you're in your head. You're like, I think I most likely could get one more, but I'm not 100% confident. I feel like most likely I'm not going to get that rep. I can't contradict myself there, but most likely I'm not going to get that rep. That's your RIR of 1. You're leaving 1 rep in the tank before you hit failure because you're not 100% sure if you can get that rep, but you think that you can. If you know 100% that you can get the rep, I can tell you for a fact that that is a 2 RIR because we can always do more than we thought we could. Even Casey and I, at the level that we're at with our bodybuilding and having done this for over 10 years each, it's really the mind is a very funny thing where when we're pushing like that, signals are going through our body saying that like this is painful, it's uncomfortable, I don't want to do this anymore, and it initiates those thoughts of I don't think I can get any more reps. I don't think I can get any more reps. But 9 times out of 10, we actually can do 1 more rep than we thought that we actually could. So, anyways, that's my little tidbit on effort. Now, the injury stuff is where I'm going to focus most of this conversation on because the RIRs are pretty straightforward. I kind of gave you a good definition there. You can't always like take a set to full failure and see what that actually is for you. Now, in terms of being able to do that safely, and this is the bigger part of the conversation here is we know RIRs are there to gauge the effort, but how do we make sure that we hit that RIR safely? And how do we make sure that we, if we are going to failure, that we do that safely? And it comes down to a variety of different things that we want to look at. So the first one being pre-existing injuries. Let's say I'll use a personal example. I herniated my back 7 years ago or something like that. And so there's certain movements that are just like not the best for me. Even if my form is really, really controlled and really good, they still just load a lot of tension on my back, and there are movements that I avoid. So one would be a conventional barbell deadlift. With that in mind, knowing that I have that pre-existing injury and it's a movement that tends to make my back pretty tight and sore, going to a one RAR might not be the best idea for me because there's previous injury, so I'm more prone to having a flare up. I'm not as stable as I used to be. My disc has protruded and it'll never be the same. So there's less stability because of that injury. And so that means, while I might be able to physically accomplish a one IRAR, that might be putting me at more risk for re injuries. So, and this is something, if you have concerns about this because you have pre existing injuries, make sure you let Casey or I know, because it's important for us to understand when we do program you to make sure that we're also programming your RIR safely. Now, with that said, just because you have a pre-existing injury doesn't mean you can't hit a one RIR. Now, with deadlifts, the main target that I'll be focusing on is my glutes and my hamstrings. I have that pre-existing injury, but there's other exercises that I can do that I can take to failure and know I can do it safely. So it's less dependent on the effort, more dependent on the actual exercise at hand. All right. So again, going back to, if you have an injury, let Casey or I know. And if there's a movement where you feel like unstable or feels you just don't feel secure. I don't know how to, anybody who's had like a dislocation or anything and has like laxity in a joint or a torn ACL or something knows what I mean when I say this, but it just doesn't feel, you just don't feel stable. There's movements that like, it kind of makes it feel like your knee is going to slip again, or your shoulder's just in a position where you kind of feel like, oh, it just doesn't, it feels like I'm scared that it's going to pop out again. If you have that hesitancy in your mind, then you need to chat with us, because most likely we need to swap that exercise out or change how you're doing it. All right. Which brings me into kind of the second big thing is form. Form comes above all. Before your RIRs, your RIR level, if you're an RIR 1, you're leaving one rep in the tank of quality reps, not sloppy, messy reps, because we can keep going. Like if I'm doing bicep curls and I let my form slip, that means I can start using momentum. I'm like using my my anterior delt to try and hike the elbow up to change that lever and make the weight lighter. And there's all sorts of ways that we can compensate if we let form slip so that we can push further into the set. But we don't want to do that. We're aiming for these rep ranges with these RIRs with quality reps as the leading principle. Number one is your reps always, your form always stays really controlled. Form can be something that doesn't come naturally. There's movements in the gym, especially when you're newer to the gym, that are just, they're not movements that we do every day. We don't always do like glute focused RDL. It's not how we put our pants on. And so it takes a little bit of time for our bodies to create the proprioception. So connecting the neurons to our fine motor skills to make sure that that form is really good. And so if you're struggling with a little bit of form, number one, first thing, that's normal when you're first starting out. It will get better and better and better, but it has to be something that you're focusing on. So if you're unsure about your form, take videos, have someone take a video for you. Just find a way to set up your camera if you're like nervous about it or something, like use your water bottle and just set your front facing camera up. Any video that we can see how you're moving, even if it's from the floor up, it helps a lot, and we can see your form, and that way we can actually guide you from what we see and give you cues on how to change that. So it's easy for us to say like, hey, your back needs to be straighter. You need to do this, you need to do that. And we will tell you those things, but we're also going to give you cues on how to actually make that happen, because it's easy to see it. It's not as easy to actually do it. So an example of that would be like a cue of, I use this one all the time. I know my clients will know this one. If you're doing something that's lat focused, I tell you to try and keep your elbow as close to your hip as you can at all times. So if you're doing a high to low movement, you're trying to drag that elbow out as far as you can and bring it right down to your hip rather than having hiked up. Good cue to help you remember not to be using your traps or your mid back, those sorts of things. So we'll use cues and form correction as a way to prevent injury. Um, and then a lot of it, honestly, like those are the two major things. It really is pre-existing injuries in your form, but form can start to degrade, and we can start to kind of chase the numbers a little bit, and that's honestly that's when injury happens the most. It's not due to how hard you're pushing yourself. It's not even necessarily due to the number that is associated to the movement you're doing, like a 45-pound goblet squat versus 320-pound hip thrust. It really doesn't matter what the actual number is. It matters about the principles that you employ when you're executing those movements. It doesn't matter so much that you push yourself right next to failure or if you even hit failure. It matters if you're able to do that safely, and we do that by guiding form. So when injuries happen, it's most often because we see people, they're like CrossFit is a really good example. There's CrossFit is a very specific type of resistance training, which uses a lot of high velocity movements, a lot of compound movements, so multiple joints moving at the same time. And they often do workouts that are focused on getting as many reps in a certain amount of time as you can. So you're trying to move really quickly as well. Why people often experience so many injuries with CrossFit is because when you're trying to push the limits of other things like speed, and you're trying to get weight up as much as you can, you're adding multiple joints into the equation. There's so much more room for error with form, and that's when it happens. It's when form isn't quite right, and you tweak something. When you're like a CrossFit example, if you're doing a clean and jerk where you're pulling the bar from the floor, you're like throwing it up on your shoulders. You could do clean jerk and press, or you're then pressing above your head. You're doing like so many different movements at once. You have so many different joints that can get out of position. You're, right from the get go, you could have your feet in the wrong spot and the bar is too far forward, and you're putting weight onto your low back as you pull up. That can tweak your low back. And then when you jerk the bar up, if you don't jerk it up properly and your shoulders aren't in the proper position to anatomically be safe as you pull that bar up, you can tweak a shoulder muscle. When you get overhead and you press, if you're pressing and you're arching your back and stuff like that, you can hurt your upper back, your neck, your wrists. Like there's just so many ways where you can injure yourself, and 99% of those come down to the two same factors that I'm beating over the head with a hammer here, which is form and it's pre-existing injuries. I hope that answers the question. Again, if you have pre-existing injuries or instabilities in joints from torn ligaments or muscles, old fractures, whatever it might be, if you have those pre-existing injuries and you find that they're causing any sort of discomfort or instability with movements, message KCRI right away. We'll make sure that we double look at your plan and give you the recommendations on how to change the exercise, or we'll change the exercise for you if you're in the VIP. And then just be really, really consistent with focusing on your form, your tempo, Tempo is another way that we control things. I guess it kind of is a third. I kind of lump that into form, but I'm going to just briefly touch on that. If you're moving things really quickly, you have a shoulder press and you come straight down like this, that weight can jerk on the joints, on the tendons, the ligaments, and cause injury. So we use tempo as another way to control the weight to make sure that we're doing it safely. If you can't do the movement with the tempo assigned, the weight's too heavy and you're increasing your risk for injury. So it's really important using the tempos and the RIRs, the rep counts, everything. We don't use the super heavy lifts because that's another way. It's easier for form to break down when you're going for maximal exertion over a short amount of reps. So, hitting 5-6 rep sets with a 1 RIR is more dangerous than a 12 to 15 rep set. Yeah, that wraps it up. If you have questions, let us know. If you have injuries, let us know. If you have concerns about your plan, let us know. It's a huge part of what we do programming as coaches, and from our respective previous careers. We have a little bit of an edge up where we can help people better than most just because of our education. So we've got you covered. All right. I will talk to you soon. If you're watching on replay, #replay, drop your biggest takeaway. Let's hear your wins. And Casey will be chatting more on Friday.